Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Lighthouse Christian Church weekly celebration service. Lighthouse is based out of Fading Hills, Massachusetts, with a mission of building families, transforming communities, and releasing the kingdom of God. We hope this message will both bless and encourage you.
It's been some time since we've seen her. For those of you who don't know her, it was in the was last year. Was it around this time? Toward the summertime? That Stella had left after making, it was in her heart as an architecture student at Mount Holyoke doing her senior thesis, that she would design a classroom for a town, a remote town in the northern part of Kenya, near the Ethiopian border, called Marsabit. And there are plans laid and money that was received, and of which we were also donators. And so Stella's come back today to just give a presentation. Not only just, this month, February, is really, I think that this is the month where we talk about the goodness of the Lord, okay? We've begun with communion, and we've begun with learning that there's nothing that can separate us from the love of God. And what Stella has come to bring us today is basically an expression of the love of God, which we have been able to have a part of, not in this country, but in half a world away. And so she's going to come and share that with us. So come on up, Stella. Come on. Okay, you're much loved.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
I have 30 minutes, right? All right. Oh, wait a minute. That's 3 hours. All right. So, hello, everybody. I'm glad to be back in my second home here in Fading Hills Lighthouse. And last time I had some tears going, but this time I refused to cry. So, all right. So, thanks, Dan, for volunteering to help me with the slides. I wish I could carry with me the emotional, overwhelm that I felt while I was there in Marsabit. To refresh your memory, Kenya is in East Africa, so my journey started in Nairobi, end of September into October. I was back in the U.S. in mid-October, so I was in Kenya for I was in Kenya for about 6 weeks, and I spent about half that time between Samburu and Marsabit. So Nairobi is kind of central Kenya, and then you go up a little bit is Samburu, and then from Samburu is Marsabit. So it's kind of like going up a ladder, just to give you a visual of location. And I'm going to do my presentation in two parts. The first part is about two remarkable people that I met there, and then the second part is about the classroom, but they're all connected. So before that, I want to again pass my sincere regards and regards from the Marsabit people, and also gratitude, because without your input and your support, I couldn't have done this project. So thank you very much. All right, with that, Dan, we'll get started. Again, yes, I already spoke about that. So the first person that I want to mention is a lady called Christine. I'm highlighting these people because of, so the project, yes, was an architectural project, but in my Christian, myself being Christian, there was a great deal of that influencing the project. So I want to highlight these two individuals because of the Christianity that I saw and experienced in them, because based on what I saw, there is a remnant alive and well in northern Kenya, and I just wanted to convey that. So Christine is one of those people who, as you can tell from the name, Christine, she is very Christ-like in her life, and that left an impact on my life during the interaction with her. She lives in Samburu, but she was with me the whole time that I was in Marsabit. I didn't ask her to come with me. I didn't, request it. She just volunteered, and everywhere I went, she had her eye on me, and she made sure that I was safe and that everything I needed was provided. Herself, she's a widow, but with a very big heart, and she built her own house. Before her husband died, he was really not a good man, so she left him. So she built her own house with her own money and her own hands. And at any one time, you'll find 10 to 20 people living in that 2-bedroomed house. And she only has 4 kids, so she always has people, kids from other people who have been left, or her cousin, her nephews and nieces, or even girls that she has adopted. Just last year, she adopted this girl, Saleti, along 2 other girls. So Saleti was rescued from marriage along with 2 other girls. And just last year, she rescued 3 girls. Saleti found out that she was to be married to an older man. Who knows how old? He could be 50, he could be older. One night through a cousin, and she took off running in the middle of the night, and somehow, somewhere, ended up with Christine, and Christine adopted her, and she's back in school right now. She's 13 years old, but she's in 1st grade, and she's happy to be back in school. So stories like Christine's were the ones that kept me going in the project. So I wanted to highlight Christine. And then next slide, Dan. All right, this is Pastor Patrick. Pastor Patrick, if ever the Lord puts it in your heart to go to Marsabit, you must meet Pastor Patrick, because he is doing remarkable things. He moved from Western Kenya in a place called Kisumu, which is very modern in terms of compared to a place like Marsabit. And God called him to do ministry there, so he just left his hometown with his family, without his family in the beginning, moved to this house, which is something that is, this is a traditional house in Marsabit. And when his family first came and joined him in Marsabit, the son was like, "Why did you bring us here? I don't want to be here." Was really resistant. So he paid a big price in terms of, comfort, just so that he can take the gospel to Marsabit. And the women, so men in Marsabit have big egos, and whenever the missionaries first went to Kenya, to Marsabit to take the gospel, they would tell them, go talk to the women and the children, because they considered the women to have brains the size of kids. So he faced a lot of resistance from the men, but the women are the one that carried the gospel until the men came to accept it. So he's he values the women in Marsabit very much. The next video, short clip, will highlight the distance from where Pastor Patrick, let me see. I want to highlight the distance that Pastor Patrick walks from his house to go to the church, just so you have a visual. It takes about 3 hours one way. He has 2 congregations. The first congregation is about 2 hours away, and then the next congregation, which he leaves in the afternoon to go to the second congregation, because he has 2 services every Sunday, is about another hour. And he's also paid the sacrifice in terms of family time, because his daughter can't walk that far. She's only about 11. So they leave her at home next to, in a nearby church. And then he walks to the first congregation with his son and his wife. And then because they're too tired to walk the other distance, he walks by himself. And this is like in 90-degree heat. It's not a simple walk. So let me just highlight the video from this hilltop that we had walked. All right. That's Christine and Pastor Patrick. That's kind of like the developed area of that little town where Pastor Patrick lives. And there's even a satellite, there's reception. And then going on. The section that I want to highlight is where the school is. There's really not much going in terms of development. You can notice that the houses are getting scarce. It's mostly trees, but this is technically a desert. It's not even a semi-desert. And I'm gonna zoom into where the school is. As you can see, there are no buildings. And that little white spot over there, that's where the classroom is. So he walks all that distance. And then the teacher walks there every day. So Monday to Friday. And that's the landscape that we were working in. And that's back to the beginning, so. All right, thanks, Dan. Next slide. How much time do I have? Sorry, I'm timing myself. Okay, so this is Pastor Patrick and his wife, Esther, in their home. Next slide, please. And this is outside their new home. Not new, they've lived there for a couple of years. But I wanted to show the difference. So the first house that I showed is where he first lived. And then this house, a stranger in America is paying for his rent every month. He saw his story on Facebook, or he learned of Pastor Patrick's story on Facebook and said, yeah, go look for a place and I'll pay rent for you. And that's where they live right now. And that's where I stayed near their house the whole time when in Marsabit. They were amazing people. Next slide, please. That's just a side angle of the house. Next slide, please. Before I get to this side, I want to say that Pastor Patrick has also been a huge forerunner in education because when he was talking about the ministry to the village, he's also talked about education and especially education of the girl child. This one shocked me actually the first time I heard about it. So the Rendille have a culture, which is really sad, where not all men, but a good number of men, they're still very much in the traditional way of thinking. And what they do is if a man, they walk around with these sticks, and if a man puts a stick outside a hut, one of the huts, doesn't matter if it's another man's wife, he'll go and lay with that man's wife. So if man A puts his stick on man B's hut, he can be in that place with man B's wife. And say man B's wife becomes pregnant and man A finds out that, they'll abort that baby. The same can be done to a single girl, and it can happen at as many times. So because of that, there's been a lot of abortions happening. And Pastor Patrick has been a forerunner trying to talk to the chiefs about overturning such a culture. And it's very sad, but it's very true. So he's been very instrumental in that. And he's also been a forerunner for against early marriage. So that's why I wanted to highlight some of the works he's doing in this community. All right, next slide. Oh, here's this. So for the first time, the Rendille Bible has been translated into their local language. So this is the Bible that Pastor Patrick showed me, and I just wanted to highlight that because that's huge. All right, next, please. This is very interesting because obviously the older people, many of them cannot read and write, so they listen to the Bible through solar-powered radios provided by missionaries. And I found that pretty fascinating. Next slide, please. All right, so I found a lot of interesting parallels, not a lot, a few interesting parallels between the Rendille tribe and Jewish culture. One of the things that they do is they put blood over their doorposts, which obviously cannot just be a random idea from the sky. So they do that, and they also have this, next slide, Dan. They have this section, little thatched section that is circular, and inside where you see those little pieces of wood is a fire that's underground. That flame never goes out. It's been on for years and years, which, and only men go into the space, and men are the keepers of this flame. This space is also used to gather and to have talks about the community and things like that. But I found that to be reminiscent of the Ark of the Covenant type of setting. So it was very interesting. Next slide, please. I think I already showed this, the view, sorry. All right, next, please. So the previous proposal, as you can probably remember, was a sandbag classroom. But I had to change that because the cost, after talking to the architecture firm I was supposed to work with in Nairobi, first of all, their fees was very high, about $10,000 just the fee. And then we had to find a way to shelter them, and it became 3 times as much. So we just decided to stick with the standard method of building. Next slide, please. This was an example of an existing Kenyan house that was built of earth bags that I showed last time, and I just wanted to bring that back to your memory. Next slide, please. So this is the existing classroom that I found when I first went to Marsabit, and I just wanted to put it out there just so you can see. The class is still being used, but it's at least they don't have to stay in that hot classroom anymore. All right, so the new classroom is partially built of stone and partially built of sheet metal, because we had to work around a budget. So a standard classroom in Kenya is about 10,000, and I only had about half that amount. So we decided to have a classroom that would still serve a purpose, even though it was not fully completed until the funds became available for me to finish the project. And then architectural elements that were there considered was large windows facing the wind to maximize ventilation and cooling, the placement of the classroom on the site, and also we also raised the foundation to maximize on the cooling effects. Next slide, please. So this is day one. You can see the kids on the left, and then the church elders on the other side. I'm very curious during the build because I couldn't see too many women. Apparently women are not allowed to be where men are working, so not many women came to the site, but these are the kids and these are the men. All right, that's the bishop. Bishop is the one who led me to the project in Marsabit. He's from Samburu. All right, and that's me, getting ready to break ground. All right, and then that's just a song for the ceremony. All right, the work is beginning. Next. Foundation, next. Construction stones. Those stones, some of them were about like almost 2 feet, 3 feet. I don't know. They're huge. But those came all the way from Samburu that they took there through the construction team. All right, first course. Next slide. The floor was raised, as you can see, it's raised from the ground just to maximize that wind that comes in. All right, next slide. Those are the stones placed in for the floor. All right, next. And next. I've put a lot of pictures just so you can see, but look at how big that stone is. All right, everything's manual. If you haven't noticed, there's no machinery to help with anything. Water, which is bigger than even the classroom. I mean, this is what they were using to go bring water. I don't know where the water came from, a borehole from far away, but this is what they were using. The cement was being mixed in this section here. It's funny because the wind would come and sometimes blow off the materials, but they managed to keep it all together. Next, please. All right, so the wall is coming up. And if you can see in the background, there's a dust, what do you call it? Dust cloud, yeah. That's how windy and hot and the dust cloud sometimes came to the site, and it covered up all the builders in dust. It was a little funny. More dust. All right, those are the builders. Next. This is the head builder. He's doing something called curing just to prevent the walls from cracking. Those are the local men that they enlisted to help with gathering stones because they knew where the stones were, and also just like a source of income for them. So this is half the wall that's come up. So that's as much stone as was bought because of a budget. And then the rest of the wood would accommodate the sheet metal that would fill up the space until the rest of the money becomes available to finish up the build. Notice how manual the work is. And so, yeah, like I was saying, the wooden frame would help support the roof for now. These were made and brought in from Samburu, which is that's the window, and the long one over there is the door. Trusses, what we're looking at right now is the church, so we're using the church as a space to make the trusses. Last year I showed this image here. This was the kitchen, and I didn't know anything about the new kitchen until I arrived on site, and I was pleasantly surprised. Next, please. That's the kitchen right now. A Korean who lives in Marsabit, I don't know how, donated this structure, and it's smokeless, which is huge because smoke is a big problem, and smoke and health is a big problem in Kenya. So a smokeless oven which allows the smoke to rise up into the fresh air instead of being inhaled by the women. Trusses are going up. So first they install while inverted, and then they'll be manually raised. All right, going up. You can see a lot of scaffolds. All right. Water. So that tank had water that was collected in April. In 3 years' time, speaking of last year, it had only rained for the first time last year. So that water, there's another tank next to it. So this water was being used for the classroom only. They had to lock it up because they didn't want the villagers to use it, and villagers walk way past that. I don't know if you can see the hill in the distance over there. They walk way past to go get water. So right here, they found water. Notice how close it is to the classroom, because they surveyed a large area, but God is good. They found it right there next to the classroom. So the church is working on getting a pump installed over here. All right. Just another visual. I think I'm cold, so that's why I'm shivering. All right, just, yeah, more man. I was impressed by how the builders were just, didn't worry about being suspended up so high, but they're used to this type of building, so. All right, that's the head builder. His name is Jonah, and he's a youth pastor. That's me. Inside the classroom, I just wanted to show the front view. And that's the team of builders. I wanted to take a picture. This was the last day we were there, and I just wanted to gather them together to show who was working on the project. This one was interesting to me because we noticed not too far from the classroom, this woman was sitting under this tree learning. They're learning, basic math, 5 plus 7. I looked at some of their books. They want to learn how to read so that they can translate, so that they can read the Bible for themselves, and found that to be very interesting, and just to have a basic knowledge of how to read for themselves. So I told them that they can come in and use the classroom in the evening, and they were really appreciative of that once we install solar light. Does this look familiar? This is the prayer room. Books, thanks to many of you, we really appreciate it. I came in last summer and I boxed up these boxes. Next slide, please. The one on the bottom is a bell, so they really appreciate the bell that was donated. And voila, this is the classroom. This was week 1 of their class experience this year, and the kids were gathered just for a picture. Next slide, please. And that's another angle of the classroom. And more pictures, the kids. So part of the Marsabit culture and a lot of cultures in Kenya, whenever they're happy, they just sing, so the kids are singing. And this one was another pleasant surprise because the community donated these desks to the kids. So it's like they're catching on to the, interest in education, and they just donated these desks. All right. The books arrived this morning after 6 months. God is good. Nothing happens by chance. As I was talking to Ed and Joanne about it. And there they are, lined up. The kids are looking on in anticipation. And you can have an interior glimpse of what the classroom looks like from inside. That's the bishop from Samburu. They drove in this morning with the books. Those pictures were just taken today? Yes, of the books. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. Video. That's the teacher. So, yeah, that's just a Kenyan thing people do when they're happy. I think there's one more slide. All right. And one more, Dan. So future projections, when the classroom is done, the walls will be made of entirely made of stone, plastered with cement on the inside, on the outside. And it will serve as a second grade classroom by day and an adult literacy class in the evening. When the solar lamps are fitted, that will be even more beneficial. And it's the first permanent structure in this area because they're nomads and they don't usually build permanent, but now land is becoming an issue, so people are becoming more anchored. And now the nomads move around anchor points such as classes and schools and water points. So it's interesting that this is a permanent structure for the first time, and also a library in Marsabit. And the very last slide says, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think that's all the notes I have. Yeah, and very sincere regards from Pastor Patrick and Bishop, because they were a huge, they just said thank you from the bottom of their hearts, pretty much. Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Lighthouse Christian Church weekly celebration service. We hope this message has blessed you. For more information about our church and ministries, visit our website at lighthousema.com.